at least in pre-seed, we had already gotten like 35K, like pre-seed, first round, everything. So it's not like we did not have the money. We had the money. So that's why I learned a valuable lesson. Sure, you might have the money, but if everyone is not on the same, let's say on the same page, you can't really go far. Hi, my name is Christopher Chukwuemeka, primarily in software development. I also have, some feathers on my shoulders as an entrepreneur, or as we call it, startup founding. So in this line of work, I've founded about 2 startups, one within the finance space and then another within the creative space. I believe leadership is all about giving a direction. Leadership, it's more or less the way you go, others follow. So I'll define leadership as understanding that which is you set out to do, and then being able to, let's say, communicate to the different stakeholders you have to be able to achieve this. So people more or less focus on the management part, but it's not everyone you manage. Basically, some people you just communicate with them, you get. Okay, when we say hiring, there's a need to fill, basically. So obviously a priority is skill, the ability to actually fill in that skill. Secondly, your organization culture is very important. You need to make sure that this person you're hiring can fit into the system you have. And then number 2, something I look out for is there's this system of hiring where you ensure that, okay, if everyone else in your company is working like this person you're about to hire, for instance, would your company run into the ground? So the things I think that are core to look out for is the ability to do the job, number 1, the ability to likely be a leader, number 2, and how they fit into your organization's culture, because I think that's usually not as focused on culture. It's different organizations have different culture. It could be culture of stand-ups, it could be culture of basically how you interact. Some cultures have open door policies, so you need to make sure that whoever you're getting is going to be like, a good fit. Yes, fit into your culture. Personally, I do work a 9 to 5. Yeah, and I think that's also a part people neglect on the path to becoming founders. You go directly, but you've not really seen how an organization's culture works first. So why am I saying this? I've seen firsthand how the impact of what the founders are doing, like in the company, for instance, there's an open door policy. You can talk to anybody. You can query anybody. The budget. The budget for this year. What is the budget for this year? You can ask literally anything and they would answer to the best of their ability. And what does this do? I feel like I'm in the loop. You get this kind of culture encourages. So I know, just aside the money which I'm being paid, I feel like I'm a part of something. And I feel it's very important for founders to let every part of employee know their part in the value chain. Every organization has a value chain. So, okay, if you're in support or if you're in sales, this is your contribution to the value chain. If you do not do this is how it's going to affect these other people. You get. So I believe, founders are actually the leaders at that particular point. Yeah. My personal experience, I built a FinTech startup I had other co-founders actually. I joined them as a co-founder, so they already started tweaking the vision. So I joined them to lead the technical team. Yeah, that was my contribution as a co-founder. So in this, I won't say it was lack of capabilities. So sometimes this is why I take engagement very seriously. Stakeholder engagement. Your internal team, they are stakeholders. So what happened? We had different directions we wanted to go, the internal team. So it kind of like caused some issues. And mind you, it's not like we were just starting. We had raised funds, at least in pre-seed, we had already gotten like 35K, like pre-seed, first round, everything. So it's not like we did not have the money. We had the money. So that's why I learned a valuable lesson. Sure, you might have the money, but if everyone is not on the same, let's say on the same page, you can't really go far. So in this example, some people in the team wanted to do savings, yeah. Some people wanted to do loans per se, and personally, I even know the role I had to play. I was against that, basically doing loans, because I felt that we needed to hit a kind of equilibrium first. We needed to have our product stable before we go into loans, and obviously loans has its own risks. So I was more at the point of, when we're starting this is not what we discussed. You get, like, we're meant to go more into investment, something else rather than loans. Like I was, how do we get the capital? How do we ensure people pay it back, which is one of the problems. So this little thing here, it's what really costs like everything to just, like, we're still running, but because of the communication, there's a bit of resentment, professional resentment, not like we're all angry faces and all that. But yeah, that's how it was in 18. Well, usually there are three major ways of keeping people motivated. First, money. Secondly, there's equity. They know that they own this, so, or we call it ownership. Then third is where you have a dream so big that these people want to be part of it, regardless of whether they are paid or not. But I would say that communication, it's very important. I'll give you an example. There was a company I heard of in the US. It was a company when the country was going through like turbulent times. The founder came out and said, this is what's happening. We would likely have to lay off some people, but if you can stick with me, we are going to like reduce salaries. But once the economy comes back booming, you're going to get all your back pays and all that. And now, if you see this versus what some people just do, they just owe salaries, basically, no communication whatsoever. And in that, no one actually quitted. People were willing to actually stay. Why? They felt respected. Communicating with someone, it's a sign of respect. They felt respected. They knew that, okay, you respect me enough to let me know about this, to let me make a decision for myself. And guess what? They stayed. After that, the company came back and they all got huge bonuses for believing in the company. So I believe, to answer your question, using this example, you can say delayed rewards. You could tell them, yes, there are some people, it's just like the sales model, lower salary, but okay salary, and the focus is more in bonuses. So there are different ways to actually enforce this. The first example was actually like my first startup. Like, I already own the business, but it's a software agency that runs. It's a normal model, but that was like my actual first startup, and I did not know most of these things. So I wouldn't say I behaved as well. There are some points where emotions were ruling, but when it comes to managing relationships, especially when you're going into business with your friends, it's a bit dicey. Why? Sometimes you have expectations. We are meant to do a launch next week. What do you mean you're playing video games? Something like that. Like, it depends on the level of the relationship, yeah? But I would say communication, and you have to understand their emotional responses. How do they respond? This thing they say someone is a choleric, so you have to understand the nature of your team, what motivates them. So for some, the way you break news to one person or the way you talk to one person is different from the way you talk to another. Let me give you an example. So we had a point, I want to name the startup, but on the startup I was working on, we had a point where we needed to motivate, a team member to work and all. Yeah, all we did was just, add a female to the team. Yeah. And it's more or less, there are people you understand maybe how they work. There are people that work in the mornings. There are people that might not function well in a particular role, but if you put them in a role where they have to show themselves, they'll be more, because they have something to gain from it too. There are people that prefer working behind the scenes. So I believe managing that relationship starts with you first understanding the kind of person they are, so that you can communicate accordingly, so you can tailor your communications to their person. First, you need to understand that a business has many classes of stakeholders. So there's usually about a 5-step process when it comes to, we call it more stakeholder engagement, because you can't really manage all stakeholders. You're not managing your investors, or rather, like you said, what you're managing is the communication or their expectations there. So the first step usually is to identify who are your stakeholders. You're a business. Who are your stakeholders? So in this case, you should know that your internal team, they are what we refer to as internal stakeholders. We have your customers, we have distributors, we have investors, and what some people don't realize is you also have people like regulators. If you're in a regulated industry, all these are your stakeholders. Once you recognize the parts stakeholders play in your business, that's when you move on to the next step, which is where you plan. That is where this question comes in. So now, some stakeholders, you just need to inform them. There are people, you just need to inform them, okay, this is what we are doing, this is the product we have launched. There are some stakeholders you actually need to convince, or rather influence. So in this situation, your customers, you need to influence your customers. You need them to buy. You need them to buy into what you're doing. Yeah. Now, why I mentioned these steps is so you know where your investors fit in. What is the motivation of your investor? They want to make money, basically. Your investors want to make money. So for you to actually manage that relationship, your relationship with your investors, you need to be clear about how you're going to make money, for one. You need to be clear about what you're doing, number two. A typical question usually asked at this point is, there's usually a trick question. They're like, your investor wants returns, but you know that if you put back that money into the business, you sacrifice the short term for the long term. If you don't give them that returns and you reinvest that into the business, they are going to be seeing a lot more. You get? This is what they want. This is what you know that would happen if you do not give them what they want. All you need to do is communicate, spell it out for them, basically. This is what you want. I know because they are a stakeholder. Once they receive that return, is that where the stakeholder stops? No. They are going to obviously get on the next return. So obviously it's easy to convince them that this is for your own good, basically. Option two, let's reinvest this. Let's get some employee critical things done so we can do certain things. So I believe in this. It still boils down to communication. Communicate effectively, and like they say, communicate clearly and respectfully. You don't go in charging. You need to understand first what they want and then communicate an action plan that will still lead them to what they want. That's why it's called stakeholder engagement, 80% communication. I feel sometimes the founders think that people really care that much about the work you put into your product. The reason a customer is using your product is it solves a need for them. So I even watched a speech Vusi gave. He also stated the same thing, that is Vusi Tembekwaya. He stated the same thing, that you should stop optimizing at a particular point. Yeah? Once it is ready, it is ready. Does it work? Yes, ship it, get feedback. If not, you're optimizing a product based on your own knowledge, not the user's knowledge. So a common misconception I believe most founders have about customers is that you can accurately just guess what they want. Solve the need, ship it out, they would give you feedback. Even Elon Musk said this, that the problem most founders have or people have is they optimize something that should not even exist. You haven't built the product yet. You're trying to make it optimize, i.e., imagine if Steve Jobs spent all his time trying to get the current size of iPads that we have or the current size of MacBooks that we had, instead of just shipping the working products first. And that's usually the approach. Well, I believe as a founder operating within any industry, whether you think it's regulated or not, you should first be knowledgeable. Check out things that are allowed and things that are not. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're a FinTech founder, you're building a FinTech startup, and you focus because you see lots of apps here. They have really nice designs. You build your card funding flow for people to fund their accounts with their cards and all that. Let's say you put in all that work, and then when you're getting ready to launch or you're ready to integrate with partners, you realize that, you're not allowed to collect users' card details. They can't impute it on your app if you do not have PCI DSS certification, for instance. So I believe that first, you should have that institutional knowledge. You raised a point regarding certain limitations. There's a reason why some of those limitations are the way they are. And usually, I believe an approach would actually be to see what other people are doing. If you feel this is a limitation, but you've seen someone else doing this exact same thing, and it doesn't seem like that limitation applies to them, try to see how they are doing it. Because in this same startup world, that maybe fintech world, maybe that you need a banking license to operate a fintech. There are people who operate a fintech without a banking license. How do they do that? So I believe this comes from research. So once you research, you find your way around it. Leveraging personal relationships. Even if you went to YC Combinator, you went to your raising funds, for instance, there's a reason why the first step is usually those around you. Normally, what everyone knows is when you're fundraising, it's what pre-seed, seed, Series A, Series B, but there's an actual round that most people don't even know that it's the normal process, and you going through that round would actually even help you getting your pre-seed. That round is friends and family round, literally. Like, it's because for those people around you to actually be that invested in what you're doing is almost like a proof of concept, basically. Number two, when it comes to the people around you are usually your first customers. They should be your first customers. Now, but when it comes to a business sense, leveraging personal relationships to move forward, that's the whole point of bootstrapping. You do anything you can. Even if you do not have that personal relationship, you make it a personal relationship, because starting out a business, you also want people that are invested in what you're doing. As a personal example, there has been a lot of times that I've used personal relationship in my business. Is it getting, starting out my founding team for a particular project I'm currently working on? It's personal relationship. the designers I'm working with. Personal relationship. It's not that you can't go to pay someone around. You would obviously still pay. It's not like they're working for free. But you know that this person is invested in what you're doing more than the money. So sometimes it's always good to have a personal relationship. For instance, even companies that hire you, you see that they even strive to create a personal relationship with you. That shows you how important it is. Yeah. Raising funds is directly tied to expansion, growth. If you're bootstrapped to a particular level and the app is working, what does raising funds, if you do not intend to expand your offerings, what does raising funds do for you aside maybe pay, you want to do giveaway, pay people within your team, you know? So that tells you that the real reason to raise funds here is you're looking to expand. Because if you've built a startup, you're bootstrapped to a particular point where you're having thousands of users, people are using your products, then there's really no need to raise funds. This just shows that raising funds is tied to what? Expanding. People just focus about the money. Oh, they get an awesome valuation, their valuation increases. So one, you're looking to grow. Number two, the reason why people raise funds is about the who, not the what. So in most times, you're raising funds not because you're getting $1 million or you're getting $2 million. You're raising funds because person XYZ is giving you $2 million, meaning that person is going to be invested in what you're doing. They are going to make sure you're going to succeed. See people that go on Shark Tank. Is it just about the money? Let's say I build a product for real estate, for instance, and I go on Shark Tank. Sure, my product might already have cash flow by that particular point, but why am I going on Shark Tank? Because someone on Shark Tank, I think is Lori, she's in real estate, she has all the connections. So what does that mean? If she invests in me, she's going to be the best person to introduce me to every single person. So sometimes people think raising money is just about the money. No, it's strategic. Imagine you go raise money from a firm that's also invested in another firm that you want to partner with. You all are now in the same circle. Yes, so sometimes it's all about ecosystem. You're raising that money from that VC because you want to enter that ecosystem. Sometimes your cash flow already negates the money you're trying to get. You already have that money, you get. So I think, so to summarize, when to raise money, when you know you need to scale, when you know that you need something from that ecosystem, and number three, sometimes you just need to extend your runway. Sometimes people raise money so that they can extend their runway. For instance, there are some deals you do that you know you're going to really get in 3 months, 6 months, you're really going to hit, that sweet spot. But you do know that in the 6 months, your company is going to be dead. So you raise money so you have enough liquidity to take it through that period to make sure that you hit there. But there's no point in raising money for an extended runway if you're not planning to level up. You're extending your runway to be on the same level. That doesn't work. Yeah. So if I were to build in finance, which I have, I currently work within the financial space. First thing you have to understand is what you're trying to achieve. Are there certain regulations regarding that? That's the first thing. If you're trying to build savings, holding people's money, that's something that you need to be licensed to do, except if you have a partnership with a firm or a payment processor that you can go under their license cover. We call it license cover. We have sample organizations that actually do this. So you don't necessarily need a license. They hold the money is domiciled with them. That is one. Number two, you need to understand the architecture very important. That is, when I say architecture, I'm referring to systems design, how things work. So first thing, the most important thing is your wallet system, how you store users' balances, how you manage users' balances. So typically you have what we call like a core banking in some situations, where you have ledgers, any money coming in, any credit and debit actions, you're able to properly record it. That is step one. So once you can manage your users' balances, step two is how does your user fund the balance? How does your user withdraw from the balance? This is where you now need external intervention. Partnerships with financial institutions. So once you're partnering with a financial institution, they can provide you different payment methods. For maybe in some cases, they provide you dedicated accounts, so bank accounts that they give you an account number, when you type your account number and choose the bank name, you see your name. That's a dedicated account. There are some that provide you accounts where the account is generated when you're trying to make that transfer. So they tell you, oh, this account is only valid for like 20 minutes. So you need to know what are the funding options you want and who can provide this to you. Number two, you need to do disbursements. How do you disburse, basically? And this is also by partnering with a financial institution. So one thing that is very important is who you're partnering with, because they would affect your service stability. If you partner with a financial institutions who takes, let's say, 2 hours to process transaction, that means all transactions on your platform will take 2 hours. I think as a creative, you're always in creative mode. So when I feel myself getting there, because I've been there before, so I try to detach. I might go watch a movie, I might go read. I read a lot, basically. So in reading, I can lose myself into the plots. But the thing is, I'm giving my brain time to rest. I can tell you how many times that in the midst of reading or watching a movie, it clicks, basically. Why I say clicks? Typically, I work on systems design. I design architectures for software systems, so database down to how everything would interact, basically. So imagine when I'm watching a movie and everything is just fitting in the background. So take time to refresh. Sometimes I love long walks. I think more on my feet when I'm working. Even on phone calls, I'm always walking. Yeah, I think that's something I don't think most people know. If I want to have a serious conversation, my feet needs to touch the ground. I'll start walking around. Yeah, so that's what I do. I don't necessarily watch anime. Not that I don't have anything against it. Actually, I believe that they are one of the best writers. Why? I love books, and there's lots more that goes into books than screen. It's just like now, I'm sure you've watched Harry Potter. I read the books before even watching it. So when I watch the movies or the series, I feel like there are things missing. There are certain things missing. So it's the same thing. Animes, first there's a manga, there's the animated series, and then, in some situations it's adapted into film. So I'm telling you, I don't watch animes, but I have nothing against animes, basically. Typically, I love watching, is a subsect. I prefer watching ancient Korean or Chinese movies, wars, horses, because I love horses. So it's just a time when there was no technology. It's just horse. Yeah. Yes, this coding that I'm coding, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist there. So yes, I think actually, I just made a self-realization. That's why I watch it. Computers do not exist. These things that stress me do not exist. Yeah. You've already dragged out how to build a fintech from me, so I'm pretty sure you con other people into releasing industry secrets here. I'm sure for the betterment of, obviously, the viewers. I really wished I had something like this when I was starting out. When I started my first fintech, I was running away from backend or anything, because in my mind I've never done anything like that.